Issues, but we're doing this Make Fairfax Safe Again tour. You know, Fairfax County is one of the wealthiest counties in the United States of America. And, you know, with that wealth, you've got the ability to protect yourselves, to hire the best police force, the sheriff's office, and to do everything possible to try to prevent crime. But isn't it a shame that you have Democrat elected officials who won't do their job, and their number one job at that, which is to protect the lives and the safety and the rights of the citizens that they serve? But I want to let you know, I don't care if you live in Fairfax County or Arlington County or the city of Richmond or even the city of San Francisco. When I'm in the United States Senate, I will be supporting the President of the United States. Yes. We're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. It's absolutely needed. But we also must do something that we did in Prince William County 10 years ago. And that is this. If you are here illegally and you commit a crime and we detain you and we bring you into that jail, we're going to check your immigration status. And we're not going to care whether you're white or black or Hispanic or Asian, or whether you're speaking English or Spanish or Portuguese or Swedish or whatever language you speak, or Finnish.
That's very common.
Yeah. We're going to check everybody's immigration status. And if you're here illegally, when you served your sentence, you're not going back home, you're going back home to the country that you came from. You know, 10 years ago, we put this policy in place in Prince William County. 10 years ago. And they made this documentary. Don't watch it, by the way, I'm the villain. It's called 9500 Liberty. But anyway, as they what do you call it, when a movie, the premiere, they had it up at the New York Times building with Columbia University students in attendance, and they invited me to come for the premiere. Well, they didn't expect me to answer yes, and I did. Now here's a little twist. They put me up at the Trump Hotel. They did, I'm not kidding. But anyway, so the movie shows, and it really paints me as this really, you know, bad guy, you know, this, you know, twisting arms and all that stuff, which, by the way, I do. But anyway, so, and then as the theater is still dark, they put us in there, and they, up front, there I am at the front with this panel. I'm the bad guy right there at the panel, and they have all these liberals, you know, professors and everything else on this panel. And then the lights come on, and they see me there, and they start booing. I mean, loudly. But here's the upshot of that. At the end of the thing, I said, I have one question for you all. If somebody is here illegally, and they commit a crime, and they pose a safety threat to you and your families, should they be deported? And at that point, there was a left-wing liberal comedian, I forgot his name now, but he looked at me and he goes, absolutely yes! Well, there you go. I think it's pretty instructive. It's Paul Rodriguez, that was his name. Paul Rodriguez.
No one's seen it since.
He was last seen with the Clinton campaign.
Put it in his drink.
But anyway, well, look, folks, this is not a partisan issue. It is not. It's not an issue, by the way, that Republicans should be fearful of. It's not one that we should be running away from. There's a lot of Republicans who don't want to touch it. They think that you're going to be labeled names and all that, and you will be. Trust me. I've been labeled everything. But when you ask the average citizen, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrat, with what race they are, what their ethnicity is, what their background is, for the most part, most Americans will say, absolutely, somebody's here illegally and they're a criminal and they pose a safety threat, they should be deported. And that's what we're going to do. So that policy that we put in place, which is called the 287G policy, 287G, which will check the immigration status of every single person in the jails in the United States, so that people are deported on the other side of a wall which will be constructed, so they can never come back and pose a threat to you and your families. That is also what we're going to do when I'm the United States Senator.
Does that mean that ICE takes over from there? Is that-
Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. So,
Sorry.
and I'll take a couple
Good for that,
questions in a
good for
moment.
that, that's good, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to do, folks. That's what we're going to do. This is especially pertinent in Fairfax County. One of the wealthiest counties, one of the most educated counties. You shouldn't have a lot of crime here. And you don't generally, but you do have MS-13. One of the worst, most brutal gangs in the United States.
Animals.
And 80%,
Rabbit animals.
80% of the members of MS-13 are illegal aliens. And they're so brutal. They kidnap, they abduct teenage girls, they bring them into the gang, they assault them, and if the girls try to leave the gang, if they try to resist, they're assaulted, they're killed, and they're dismembered. And that's what has happened in Fairfax County. And I say, enough is enough. Let's find them, let's arrest them, let's charge them with the crimes that they've committed, and then let's deport them so they can never threaten you. Now, of course, Tim Kaine doesn't believe that. In fact, at the point that the government of the United States was on the brink of a shutdown,
That's right.
and President Trump stood up to all of these liberals, including Tim Kaine, who said he was not going to vote to keep the government open unless there was amnesty for illegal aliens. In other words, he sacrificed all of you and your interests. All those benefits to military families, both active duty and veterans, would have been cut off and disrupted. He was willing to do all that for what? To give amnesty to people who weren't supposed to be here in the first place. And I think that what that tells you is this, that Tim Kaine is not about your interests. He's not about the interests of Virginia. He is interested in only one thing and one thing only, his own political career. And what that means for him, he had a really bad hangover the day after the election in 2016. He really did. That guy thought he had visions. He was going to go up there with Hillary Clinton. And he knew that she was sick. He was figuring he's going to be president. That's what he was thinking. So he didn't get it. It must have been a real heck of a day for him the next day. And I bet anything, and I can see it, when every time I see this guy, I haven't seen him personally, but he looks terrible. And every time he opens his mouth, he is so vindictive, all he wants to do is undermine the President of the United States. As the President is trying to bring back jobs, as the President is trying to make us more safe, as the President is trying to rebuild our military, all he does is undermine the President. And when he undermines the President, he undermines all of us and he undermines our country.
Yes.
And it's time for him to go. Go. What do you think about it? What has he done? It's been 6 years. Other than to run for vice president. That's it.
On the tax issue, he voted no. He voted no on the tax issue.
That's right. Every time he gets a chance, and even the Democrats tell me this. This is why he's going to lose, folks. Even the Democrats call him weak. Weak. Because he hasn't done anything. He can't stand up for anything. So I got a little bit of good news, and I'm going to end it with that and then take some questions. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce. Now, by the way, Andy and I were just talking. My mother-in-law and her sister are here. They just arrived from Sweden. Legally, by the way. Yeah. They didn't try to sneak over the North Pole and But anyway, they're here. They're you know, cooking for the kids and all that.
Oh, they're not here.
And they've done this every time I'm running for election, which seems like it's every year. But they're here, and which allows me to travel with my wife for 24 years, my wife Maria. So here's the good news, folks. Here's the really good news. And by the way, we're going to have an announcement with even better news come Monday, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. Oh, man. If the Washington Where's Tony Olivo?
Link it to Tony.
Tony's the Washington Post reporter. No. I'm kidding. But we do. We have some really good news come Monday. But let me just bring this up. This is come out in the last several days. But you know, at the beginning of 2018, the Democrats started with a 17-point ballot advantage, a generic ballot. So a Republican versus a Democrat in Virginia. 17 points. That'd be very hard to overcome, except things have been changing. Namely, we have a popular president of the United States who's getting a great As goes the president, so go the midterm elections.
Yeah.
That's the trick. No matter what I do, if the president is doing not popular, it's going to be very hard for me to win. If he's very popular, we're going to win. So what's happened over the last several months, as the Democrats have shot themselves in the foot, as they've shown that they're more interested in their left-wing partisan politics, as they've shown that they're not interested in helping the president to make America great again, as the president has done a great job, as the unemployment for African Americans is at a record low, and all this means that his approval ratings have gone up over the 50% mark. That initial advantage that they had at the beginning of 2018 has almost all been eviscerated according to polls. And even CNN came to the same conclusion just a couple of days ago. So I want to let you know that if you nominate me, and the one thing I'm going to say about this is, I have two good men as competitors. They're great, and I really, especially EW, he and I get along great. We've known each other. We've been on a campaign trail together for a long time. I wish I could speak as well as he does, but I mean, but
You do.
you flatter me. You should be the politician. But the thing is that there's one thing that I have that they don't have. There's one thing, and that is this: I have a record over a long period of time of not just standing up and getting things done in Northern Virginia, but winning in Northern Virginia, not once, not twice, and when you nominate me on June 12th, I will make you this promise, that we are going to fight, we're going to stand up, we're going to support the President of the United States, and we are going to win and take back Virginia. Okay, no softballs.
Okay, question. So, well, I'll pass that one.
Sure.
So I find in this area, in other areas, that when there's a fight, the Democrats, they just come out. And I feel it's always hard to get our fellow Republicans to early absent. I mean, I just don't understand, how do you get others to, in this area, if the Republicans to get out there and vote? Like, I find in this area it's very hard.
You know what the low point was for the Republican Party?
No.
And I hope I'm not offending anybody.
Okay.
If anybody's giving me a check, give it to me now. So. And by the way, I could really use a financial help. But the low point for the Republican Party really was Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
And I say this because when you think of the Republican Party, when you think of, he just kind of personified this corporate, out-of-touch guy.
Right.
Right? I mean, he was a good-looking guy, he was a smart guy, he was well-spoken, all that stuff. but people couldn't relate to him. And when I was telling this story, you know, and I think a lot of you have the same story. My brother, who drives a escort vehicle, and I call him a male escort, by the way.
Is he Russian?
But he came to me, you know, I became chairman of the Trump campaign in December of 2015. But he came to me in June, and I was always the political geek in the family, the Alex P. Keaton of the family. I mean, I was carrying around a briefcase in 11th grade, you know. But he came to me in June of 2015 and said, "I'm supporting Donald Trump for president." And I said, "Is this my brother, Dave?" He was never, you know, political. But what that told me, and I saw that too, was that, you know, Trump was taking, he was generating this interest in people who had never been interested in politics before. Some of them had been Obama supporters, and they're coming out. And that's why Republicans turned out. They saw a fighter, because Republicans are so sick and tired of being pushed around. And over the last 60 years, if you think about it, the left has an agenda. And they've been pushing and pushing and pushing and undermining our culture, our educational system, our economy, our values, everything. And what have Republicans been doing? They've been refusing to fight for the most part. A couple of great exceptions in there, Ronald Reagan being one of them. But for the most part, we've been a party that has been pushed back. Trump stood up and fought.
Exactly.
And he took all the slings and the arrows, and that is what brought people out. So when I run for this, let me tell you something. I'm not going to do what Gillespie did, and I don't want to keep kicking Gillespie.
Kick him hard.
We had no Gillespie stars. We had there was no drive in our area. There just wasn't.
He made a strategic error, because here's what Ed did. Ed made the decision that if he didn't take a controversial position on anything, and if he distanced himself from the president, that Democrats wouldn't get ginned up and they wouldn't come out to vote. You know what happened? The Democrats came out anyway, but the Republicans stayed home because they didn't see a fighter.
Right.
The way we get our people out, if we want our fighters, if we want that instinct to kick in, we want our supporters out there, we've got to be just like President Trump. We've got to hold the line, we've got to fight, and we have to welcome President Trump into Virginia to help us fight. And that's what I'm going to do.
Motivate the base.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
I'll make a comment about fighting. In addition to supporting Corey, we're supporting Shack Hill in the 10th Congressional District. There's a lot of support.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about it.
A lot of
Really, yeah.
support. Shack Hill's voters, when they go to the polls on June 12th, are most likely going to vote for Corey.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of people excited about this.
What does Tim Kaine have in his campaign coffers?
$10 million,
Hey,
which is a little bit more than I do. It's a lot more than I do. It's a lot
We have
more
$1
than
million
all
tonight.
of us.
$150,000
Now, the Dems are going to support him, but the DNC doesn't have that much money, but how much
Yes.
are they going to throw in?
So let me tell you how this is going to work. Tim Kaine, you know, during the budget impasse, the C-SPAN was covering this. They were negotiating in the Senate, and you saw a little circle of Democrats. And in that little circle, there was Chuck Schumer and what's her name from Massachusetts?
Elizabeth Warren.
Pocahontas. And then you had a ring outside of that, and then another ring outside of that, and then there was this guy kind of walking around, looking around, and everything like that, and that was Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine doesn't have a lot of respect among Democrats, even in the United States Senate. He really doesn't. They kind of see him as he's not even there. It's like he's invisible. So he's got a lot of money, but he will not get a lot more money than he has right now, and here's the reason. Is because the Democratic Party, the DNC, and all the other Democratic organizations, they're far behind in terms of fundraising. And we've got 33 U.S. Senate seats up this November. 2/3 of those are Democrats. They have to defend more than 20 seats. And you have 435 House seats out there, You've got all kinds of, you've got governorships, you've got all these legislative seats from across the country. Now, to what extent do you think the Democratic Party is going to say, Tim, here's some more money? With all those other things, it's not going to happen. When this seat becomes competitive, and it will, the money will come. We do need money. We're going to have to run. We're going to need money. But there's one thing that President Trump showed us too, and that is, we got a member of the press right here. But if you're willing to stand your ground, and even on controversial issues, you will be covered by the press. And even if they don't like you, by the way, I like Tony. Tony's a good guy. I don't like the editorial board of the book.
Who does?
Yeah.
Really.
But anyway, they have to cover it, and they will cover it, and that's going to make up for a lot of ground. And the big thing that is, it changed politics forever, and that's social media. We can get out a message a lot cheaper. You don't need the amount of money that you once did, but we will catch up. There are conservatives out there who are going to help us catch up.
Are you going to set up a Twitter account?
Oh, we do have a Twitter account. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your Facebook is doing great, by the way. I'm a
Well,
Facebook person.
thanks. I'm not a Twitter person, by the way.
But Facebook, you're doing a
Yeah.
great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
I spent about 3 or 4 days up in Pennsylvania. As you may have heard, there was a primary on Tuesday.
Right, yeah.
And do a lot of door knocking. I couldn't believe how much, and we were supporting Lou Barletta, who's running for Senate. Similar things about what you're talking about. I couldn't believe how much immigration was coming to these people, and they wanted to talk about it. Are you really going to do something about it? Immigration, I'd say 8 out of the 10 doors I knocked on, that was the first thing I want to talk about.
Really?
And this was Pennsylvania.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about Prince William County. You've won there 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah.
What are the demographics down there? I mean, my perception was it might lean a little Democrat, but and you took some strong positions
Yeah.
over the years. Why did that work for you there?
So the county is now the second largest county. It's actually the second largest locality in Virginia. We just surpassed Virginia Beach. There's 465,000 residents. The biggest, of course, is Fairfax. It's not quite as democratic as Fairfax, but it's 55% minority. We actually have a higher percentage of minority voters in Prince William County.
Yeah.
And it voted by 21 points for Hillary Clinton.
Okay.
I'm elected, like in Fairfax and like in Loudoun County, have a county-wide election for the chairman of the board. Now, when I go around the state, I have to explain that, because in most localities, you select your chairman from among your sitting members. But in Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun, you have a county-wide election for the chairman. It's like being mayor of the county. It's the leader of the county. And I've done that. I was first elected as a district supervisor in 2003. I won that election. And then I won a special election for chairman in 2006. 2007 was the regular election. And in 2011, and then re-elected again in 2015, all by increasing margins, even as the county became more diverse. So you're wondering, how does that work? How is that possible? And the answer is that it's all about relationships, and it takes a long time to build relationships. People have to trust, and for the most part, even if they view you as a different party, if they know that you're going to get the job done, they're going to vote for you. And that's what I've done. Now, one of the things that I'm not shy about the controversial positions I take, at all. And people know me. So when I try to get down to, I campaign in places that a lot of Republicans, for whatever reason, whether they're scared or whatever it is, they're uncomfortable. But I deliberately go into Democratic territory. And one of the things that I do quite often is to go to large African American churches. I have a good relationship with most of the pastors. They will always introduce me, and sometimes they'll let me speak. And at the end of the service, they're invited to come down and shake my hand and say hello or whatever. And one of the things I most commonly hear about is, "Thank you for cracking down on illegal immigration." Thank you if you think about it, it makes sense. Because which demographic group is most impacted by illegal immigration? Working class African Americans. There's a disproportionate impact. You have illegal immigrants going into working class, lower working, middle class neighborhoods, committing crimes, going into the schools. You've got MS-13 issues, and you've got illegal immigrants taking jobs away from working class Americans, and at a bare minimum, suppressing wages. And that is why this is not an issue. If we want to win in Northern Virginia and in diverse places, don't run away from illegal immigration. Embrace it. And it's been a winner.
Yes, Corey, in connection with that point, you said send them home, not home here, but home to their countries. However, I have read that oftentimes those countries right away help those same people come back here. And and they come back even more armed to have an impact on our communities and our economy, because they're coming back with drugs, they're coming back with weapons, they're coming back with a great deal of sophisticated and a vengeance. But I mean, the Kate Steinle incident, that guy had been deported 5 times, but he got back.
Yeah.
But we also we have tunnels being built into our country, and those tunnels are being funded by some countries that are giving the same technology to Hamas to build into Israel.
Yeah.
And we have an issue with that as well. I won't go on any longer, but how do we take care of that problem? I say, send them back.
It does come down to the wall. And one, you touched on something that's very, very important. It's not just illegal immigrants coming across the border from Mexico. It's not that. It's also the possibility, it's a national security issue, because you don't know. If you can't screen people coming into your country, you have no idea. They could have a criminal background. They could be carrying drugs. Or they could be a terrorist. They could be a terrorist. And the thing is about that wall is that this country, and we're seeing it all across Virginia and all across this country, opioids are killing off communities and destroying families. And we know that a lot of people get addicted to opioids through a legal prescription drug. But if we're going to tackle this issue, you also have to address the supply. And the sad fact is this, is that almost 100% of the heroin in this country comes across the border, which, by the way, heroin is an opioid. Once you're off that legal prescription drug, they go to the cheap heroin. And that's coming from Mexico, almost 100% of it. That's another reason to have a wall. And 80% of the artificial opiates, like fentanyl, are coming from factories in Mexico and coming in and polluting our families here.
So how are you going to address that?
Well, we got to build the wall.
The wall.
We're going to build the wall. That's one thing we definitely do. Yes. It's one concrete thing we can do.
Another thing that you can address that I don't hear a lot of people talking about is the diseases coming through.
Yeah.
So we went to a travel doctor. Hep A came through Mexico to California you could see how it came over. I think California has one of the highest rates of STDs now. The kids aren't vaccinated.
Hepatitis is really bad right now.
Yeah, there's some scary stuff going
Yeah,
on.
it is, and one of the things, that's tuberculosis, which is, was almost eradicated from the United States, is making a comeback.
And people who have immune deficiency disorders or on specific medications really have to watch it with TB. So it's not just people who have weak immune systems in this country that are being affected. It's just not the people who are out there. One guy at a Taco Bell was responsible for giving over 1,000 people Hep A.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the things, and it happened today, like on the Fox News, is that because we're about safety and like anti-illegal immigration, we're getting slammed for being negative immigration. And I think there needs to be more promotion of legal immigration.
Yes.
And when you meet people that come here to become citizens, it is a hard, long process. And we know people They are drilled, they are questioned, it's frustrating, and I feel like they are not, like, rewarded, like, and now, like, Jersey just passed a bill, they're gonna give money for illegal, alien, college tuition,
Yeah.
right? And your family's doing everything they can, and they're not being, and I feel like there's gotta be some momentum from us to promote the legal side and promote that we want immigrants, we want it legal, and what can we do?
Yeah.
Like, what funds are they giving to help their kids go to college? Like, I just feel like there's gotta be a little support in that area.
One of the things that, you know, I get this question a lot about that, is that they say, well, how are you going to appeal to the Hispanic community and so, and I said, you know, there's a big misconception out there. And here's the misconception which the Democrats and a lot of establishment Republicans in the media like to
But that's exactly.
But they're trying to, they like to give this image, they like
Right.
this perception that that if you're Hispanic, you don't want the government to enforce our immigration laws. And it's not true.
Yeah.
It's not true.
And that they're automatically illegal, they're not, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that when I travel and I speak to citizens who are voting for me, one of the things I hear a lot is from legal immigrants into this country who feel there's a fairness issue here.
Exactly.
They have to work hard, like you said. They have to wait years, sometimes decades, to come into this country legally the right way. And then,
You've done this. I mean, it's,
and then somebody comes in and cuts in line.
exactly.
So I think one thing we can talk about a lot more, and I should be, is talk about the fairness of that.
That's what I did.
I mean, unfairness to legal
Show that
immigrants.
side.
We're not anti, we
We're
just
not
want
anti.
the,
Right.
go through the
Yeah.
process.
Make it easier for legal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're vetted, they're checked out.
Yeah, and I agree with that, by the way. I think, yep.
Got another piece of
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm going to give you a little factoid in case folks don't know, they can follow the conversation without a question. So after 9/11, we started collecting biometrics for foreign nationals who are illegally coming into the country. And some of them would be on visas for a limited time, right? When they leave the country, it's called the exit, right? The exit program is not collecting biometrics on the way out. So it's impossible to determine, even those legal immigrants coming in, again, giving up a biometric, departures are not collecting it at all. And this has been something that they've been trying to get through Congress to get funded for over 10 years. And it just never was in favor with, the Democratic majority in the past. So I'm just wondering if you know about the issue, if it's something that you would support.
I mean, it sounds like something I definitely would support,
Yeah.
and I don't know enough about it, but I'm glad you brought this up, and I want to learn more.
DHS, Border Security, there's air, there's land, and there's sea, all three. But it's taking biometrics, not from Americans, this is foreign nationals who are supposed to be departing. Let's make sure they're the right people leaving.
I see what you mean.
So you're saying they're not leaving, they're not actually.
They can't track, they don't know.
Nobody knows.
You can't track it.
So when you come in, you're tracked. When you leave, there's no repetitive tracking.
Because with all of this going on and with the chain migration, they're literally determining our neighbors and our culture. We have nothing to say about it because those venues, they're not vetted at all for.
Right.
So.
No, exactly.
Yes, ma'am.
I've forgotten all about Tim Kaine. I'm sorry, this is all.
He's easy to forget.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what is he running on? What are his other issues besides
Well, and
immigration?
you know what, that's a question I'm going to ask him during the debate.
When
So, Tim, and I'm going to say, Tim, what have you done? I think we all need to ask this question. He's been there for 6 years. Let me give you a really good example. It's really important, our economy in Virginia is so closely tied to the military. Per capita, we've got to be close to the top for a large state in terms of the impact. We have 800,000 veterans alone living in this state. 800,000, think about that. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of military bases. We got a massive shipyard and a huge naval base down in Hampton Roads. Now, that is why it's always been important that Virginia have a United States Senator who's on armed services. Like John Warner was, and now you got Tim Kaine. But here's the thing, he's just sitting there. And as the president has put out a goal of a 355 ship Navy, and most of those ships should be constructed at the shipyard down in Hampton Roads. You've got a United States Senator in Tim Kaine who refuses to support the president in 355
That would be
ship
jobs.
So let me ask you where those jobs are going to go.
Yeah.
You know where they're going to go? They're going to go to Connecticut and shipyards
Yeah.
all across the country except Virginia.
Groton, Connecticut.
And 1 out of every 10 jobs in this Commonwealth is somehow connected to the Port of Virginia or to the shipyard. This is vital to our economy, and if we have Tim Kaine in there, we're not going to be getting those jobs. We will be losing some of these bases, will be shut down or will be reduced. We will not be getting the defense jobs, and it's all because you have somebody there who's much more interested in himself
Yeah.
and in a left-wing agenda.
The military, and then when it came to vote for the budget, he then flipped and he let them go without pay. He flipped on that decision.
Yeah.
It's like a flip-flop. We put out flip-flops for him.
There you go.
And our neighbors, our Democrats, we put flip-flops on there.
Has he agreed to debate you?
Well, I gotta win the nomination first.
Primary.
Yeah, on
So
June
the
12th.
primary's coming up. Are you competing against somebody in the primary?
Yeah, I've got 2 Republican opponents. I have 2 Republicans. So after the primary, and we're gonna have some really good news. We're gonna release it on Monday. But after the primary, then all that's going to be, no, we're gonna have to put some pressure on him. He's not going to want to debate me. But he's not a very good debater, I might add. Who remembers the debate against Mike Pence?
You kept cutting him off.
Yeah, he was rude.
Yeah, he's,
Very rude.
I think he had a 6-pack of Red Bull or something
What
before
if he
that.
doesn't want to, if he doesn't debate, what if he doesn't want to debate, you, how are you gonna?
I'm a difficult guy to avoid. So, any other questions? All right, well, I'll be hanging around. I want to thank you again. Thanks, Larry.
We all need to be asking.
Oh, yes. I need your help. If you want to volunteer, we
He's
need your
not
help.
gonna get elected